So, after, of course, reform won at some of these councils, Nigel Farage made um, some very choice comments that I would not be surprised that shall be probably referenced in future court cases against, um, shall we say, um, reform controlled councils when they try to implement some of the stuff that, Farage said, like they were going to go on this absolute sacking spree and sack all the DEI people who don't exist, or more importantly, sack all the environmental officers and people who work on net zero, the type of stuff that we actually need in a lot of these areas, especially because a lot of these areas have a lot of heavy flooding. I don't know, might be kind of important, to keep that kind of expertise in the local council. But what do I know? I'm just a YouTuber, right? Anyway, one thing I am really glad to see get reported is that union membership has now surged, as is Sky News reporting, in these reform-controlled councils. And I cannot disagree with anyone doing that, because quite frankly, with the stuff that we've seen reform said, all the stuff they said about this, yeah, makes absolute perfect sense. You probably need some union protection just in case, because it does look like Nigel Farage and co. Well, not yet at least, but they have said stuff that leads me to believe that they are going to get into some interesting disputes with HR in the not too distant future. So, anyway, before we continue, please do click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there is links to my Patreon page, the donation link called Buy Me Coffee. You can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, there's the membership button down below as well. So, let's crack on then into this. Coming from Sky News, union membership surge in reform controlled councils. Again, after you've seen all this stuff with Nigel Farage saying what reform these other reform people have been saying, it is not surprising. So the UK's largest trade union saw its membership jump by over 200% in 10 local authorities won by reform at just last month's local elections. The Unison figures show that membership now increased by an average of 272%. Wow. In the week after the results were announced, which saw reform take control of 10 councils and pick up more than 600 councillors. The data shared with Sky News shows an average of 64 people joining the union of the week beginning the 5th of May, following the poll on the 1st, compared now with an average of 28 now for the previous week and 21 for just 2025 as a whole. In a speech celebrating, of course, the party's gains, Farage, of course, warned workers at councils now controlled by reform, including Durham, Kent, Doncaster, and Staffordshire, to now seek alternative careers if they worked on diversity or climate initiatives. Farage has also now sought to bring in the Trump administration's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, nicknamed DOGE, and so far, it's doing nothing that we've heard yet. Like I say, if it was doing anything serious, I think we'd be hearing about it. But shockingly, not seems to have found anything yet. I wonder why. Anyway, he's now bringing, of course, Doge to the UK in a bid to slash the costs of the state. He's also signalled out council spending for environmental policies for particular criticism. And we'll get into another story later on this. So this was definitely one of the interesting things that happened last week, was that I think on Durham, they really got questioned like what their actual plans are for net zero and some of like the environmental policies that Durham has had in place. It's interesting to see once again their absolute non-responses of, oh well, we're just gathering the facts. We're just gathering the facts, trying to see what's going on. You have officers who work in that. You already have access to the facts. Anyway, After, of course, taking control of Durham, Farage also went to say, I would advise anybody who's working on Durham County Council now on climate change initiatives on diversity and equality inclusion, the things that you go on now from working from home, I think you all better now be really seeking alternative careers very, very quickly. Again, something that will probably maybe come back to bite Farage, maybe in a future court case. We'll wait and see what happens with that. Critics have also now pointed out the councils, of course, do not have staff who work exclusively either on diversity change or even climate change. That is now attempting to try and fire people from local government roles that tend to be very time consuming and costly for councils. He says these commitments are now just simply politically posturing. Of course they are. Shortly after Farage's threat, Christina McAnea, Union's General Secretary, urged workers at reform-controlled councils to join a union. McAnea told Sky News the membership has now surged in areas where reform did well in the local elections. Unions, of course, ensure to exist that no one can play fast and loose with the law. All staff working now for councils controlled by reform and who aren't a Unison member should probably sign up so that they can be protected too. A party that now voted consistently against the most moderate measures to improve working conditions and now threatening to sack council workers at the earliest opportunity is not one the working people are likely to trust. Reform has now taken key to shout about, of course, its taxes and benefits giveaways, but there's now actually precious little on which now cherished public services will be sacrificed now to pay for them. McKean's plea to the council workers comes now amid a far wider fight back with the trade union members now against Farage. Ahead of last month's local elections, Ed Miliband said and accused Mr. Farage of peddling lies and nonsense about net zero, and that his agenda now would only risk climate breakdown, but also now forfeit the clean energy job future in Britain. And oh boy, would it. Bear in mind, Ed Miliband should be, every time Farage says this, he should turn around and say, well, do you want to get rid of like the most profitable business in the UK, currently green energy and green technology, green industries? Do you want to get rid of that? Because I'll tell you what, reforms to regional mayors still have not, shall we say, committed to what side they're going to go on that, especially people like Luke Campbell, who in that region, they employ a lot of people on those net zero things. And I doubt that he's going to take the opportunity and destroy all those jobs. I think it's like 2,000 jobs potentially, I think, just in that region alone, and increasing even more so thanks to a lot of the investment the government is doing. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but make no mistake, I can definitely see quite possibly in the future these reform councils having quite a big tussle with these unions, if not probably maybe outright strikes by these unions against these reform controlled councils. Would not surprise me if that happened in the not too distant future. But as always, let me know what you think down below. And of course, don't forget to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, we'll see you all next time.